Back in 2018, one of the unexpected great RPGs released. You think I'm going to say Fallout 76, but I'm not. I'm talking about Kingdom Come: Deliverance. On the surface, Kingdom Come resembled maybe an Elder Scrolls game, but it was much more than that. It had historical accuracy, a historical setting. It had a very interesting melee combat system. The story was incredible. And your character, the main character, Henry, he wasn't the chosen one. He had to earn his way the place in the world. It was a fantastic game, but what's next? Where is Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2? The sequel hasn't been officially announced yet, but Warhorse Studios, the dev behind it, have been hard at work on something, and given how well the first game sold, it seems like a no-brainer. Now, there is actually some recent evidence around a sequel existing. Firstly, the Warhorse team is actually twice the size as it was during Deliverance's development, and their careers page on their website does mention that they're working on a title with higher ambitions and even greater production values. It suggests that the potential sequel is aiming to be an even grander game, which is pretty impressive as the first was great, especially given that it was a Kickstarter title in an era where many projects underwhelmed or failed to come out at all. Now, if there was any doubt from anyone that they're making a sequel, a recent job advert for a technical gameplay designer reveals that they're seeking someone who has knowledge of Kingdom Come: Deliverance. You would think that this all but confirms the sequel, and I mean, you could argue that this could just be referring to their internal systems, and therefore it would just be advantageous for you to understand their prior game. But let's be real, the sequel is coming, and you get the feeling it's probably going to release maybe end of next year, perhaps 2025. For the longest time, it did seem like a no-brainer that we would be getting this sequel. I mean, the first game was incredibly successful, and it really exceeded expectations, not just in sales, but for the game itself. It promised a lot, and again, being a Kickstarter project, there was every chance it could have just been rubbish, but they stuck the landing. And that's why people are excited. It's why people are asking questions about where their next game is. There is one hurdle though, Embracer Group. They're the huge gaming organisation that owns Deep Silver, Gearbox, a ton of other devs and publishers. It's something like 100 plus. They own heaps. And they were buying up all of these smaller IPs, developers, but then they ran into hot water. They tried to bite off more than they could chew. They tried to get into bed with the Saudi princes, or at least a Saudi gaming company, and at the last minute, that company pulled out and Embracer lost billions. Since then, the group has been shutting down pretty much any of their studios that look at them the wrong way. The Saints Row studio, Volition, is gone, and many more less notable ones have also been shown the door. Now, these shutdowns, you assume that they've got a purpose, and their supposed aim is, I guess, to get back on track, start making a profit, not just spend like they've been doing in the past. Given this, you would hope that Warhorse Studios and the Kingdom Come franchise are safe, as that's a genuine success story that they've got on their hands. Daniel Vovra, or at least I think it's Vovra, that's what Google said. He is the man behind this series, and he is a passionate guy. He's a passionate game developer. If Todd Howard was the man of the 2000s and a little bit after that, then Daniel Vovra is one of the modern versions of him, and I'd have him in the same boat as, say, a Sven Vink, who is the main guy behind Baldur's Gate 3. Both of them just ooze commitment to the cause. They want to make great RPGs, great games first and foremost. Vovra in particular is not interested in agendas, any political agendas in his games. He's making a historical title focused on quality gameplay and a quality world to explore, and you may actually remember that he got in hot water years ago for sticking by that when people complained that being historically accurate wasn't inclusive enough. Just on Vovra as well, do you remember when game developers were whinging about Baldur's Gate 3 being too good, and that players were entitled if they expected similar games from other devs? Well, Vovra, he was having none of it. He commented on it personally, and after finding out what happened, he tweeted, "I find the comments below this tweet hilarious. Developers complaining that someone is making a game that is too good? Imagine the horror." And then he goes on to praise Larian. This is a sign of a dev and a studio that aren't afraid of other games' success. They celebrate it because they know that they're also making good products. And given that Kingdom Come 2 is likely pretty far along, I'm willing to bet that their next game is looking really positive as well. They are confident. What I'm really curious about is how they're going to approach this sequel. Is it going to be more of the same? Are we going to get the same player character, Henry, and continue his story? It's a tough one because RPGs can have a really tough time when it comes to progressing with the same character in future entries. You look at a game like Elix, which is also an Embracer title. In the first game, your character is supremely powerful by the end of the title, and in the sequel, the gameplay loop just wouldn't work if you started strong, so you instead fall off a cliff, which is used as an excuse for why you're a weakling again. I'd expect Kingdom Come to have stronger writing than that, but it is tough. I mean, I wouldn't want to see the gameplay loop of building up your skills and progression sacrificed for story, but at the same time, I am interested to see where a sequel could go with Henry. The good news is, Warhorse Studios, they have earned the right to make that decision, and most players, they will back them until they make a mistake. So far, they haven't. They are a trusted developer. The sequel could be tricky though, because sometimes franchises like this, they run into problems with new entries. If you think of Pillars of Eternity, the first game, it was a Kickstarter project just like Kingdom Come. It reviewed well, it sold well, and yet the sequel, which did have higher production values, just like Warhorse have spoken about with the potential Kingdom Come sequel, it sold poorly, and it actually damaged the studio quite greatly. I'm pretty sure it actually factored into them selling to Microsoft. In the case of Pillars of Eternity sequel Deadfire, it seems like it just failed to bring back all the people who played the first, and it also failed to bring a new audience in. I personally feel it's because nostalgic gamers rushed to buy the original due to it reminding them of games like Baldur's Gate, and it was good enough to not leave a bad review, but not good enough to want to buy the sequel. That sort of explains why reception was positive, but no one really wanted to buy the second Pillars of Eternity game. On the flip side of that though, Larian did that extremely well with Divinity Original Sin 2. There were millions of people who played that game who never played Original Sin 1, and it takes something really special to do that. I feel that Kingdom Come is in more of a Divinity Original Sin situation because people enjoyed the first and it is different enough that people do want more. Kingdom Come 2 is in a unique position because if you didn't back the Kickstarter, you weren't already aware of the game, if you were just a casual player of RPGs, you saw it, you probably thought it was an Elder Scrolls-like title. It really isn't that though. It is, again, historically accurate. There's no dragons, frostbolt, magic. You're stuck in the real world, real life in this game. That's all okay, because at this point, Elder Scrolls fans will be simply happy with anything that's similar. They may even prefer a different product that is similar because of how damaged the Bethesda brand is, thanks to Fallout 76 and, of course, Starfield. People are tired of this typical Bethesda gameplay loop, their pathetic engine, their writing. Sword and sorcery fantasy in Elder Scrolls isn't really what will get fans excited anymore. They want to see quality characters, storylines, and most importantly, a handcrafted world. Kingdom Come 2 can deliver all of that. The world in the first was fantastic, and after Starfield, people are nostalgic at the idea of just a nice, reasonable-sized world that is full of engaging content. And I back Warhorse to continue to build out a world that we actually want to explore. Open world RPG gamers, they want real content, not procedurally generated garbage. Now that being said, Warhorse still need to be careful because earlier this year, the studio head Vovra, he did show quite a bit of interest in AI with this tweet. In it, he mentioned playing around with the idea of autonomous chatbots with a set pattern of behaviour for NPCs in games. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, and I'd argue if you are going to use AI or random generation of content, this would be actually the first place to use it. Most games, they will have handcrafted, interesting NPCs, but they will then have hundreds of robots wandering around the world. NPCs who don't really do anything. They might have one piece of dialogue, nothing really else. Although props to Bethesda for being the point of difference here, because Starfield NPCs, they are truly memorable. Now, if Warhorse were to experiment and they allowed us to talk to any NPC in the game world, have a conversation, and it is powered by a chatbot, I'm okay with that if it doesn't interfere with the handcrafted content and characters. If it adds more, doesn't take away from the core game, I'm all good with it. Essentially, I just want it to be the NPCs that without a chatbot would basically have nothing to do in the game. They don't have quests, they just wander around. I'm fine if they are powered by a chatbot. And when I think about these systems, the issue with something like Starfield is it feels like the devs crafted a very interesting procedural generation tool, technically impressive, but when it was implemented into the game, it simply wasn't fun. Todd Howard, he even said that the game only became fun a year or so before launch, and even that was another one of his tall tales. It was never fun. I'm excited for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Warhorse Studios, for me, they're like a Larian, a From Software at the moment. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but they've released a great game. They've got to release more to get on that level, but they're doing a good job. If they announce this next game, though, I will buy it day one unless there's glaring red flags, and I do not say that lightly. 9 in 10 publishers, they seem to let us down. Every 9 in 10. But Warhorse are okay in my book, and it was actually interesting to read the other day that out of the 120 staff that worked on the first game, only 30 of them had prior experience developing video games. I actually wonder about that, because if you look at the development teams out there, other studios, how many are actually producing great games? Is it really a bad thing if someone is a good software developer but doesn't have games experience? Maybe, if anything, it's a strength. We heard Tim Kaine from Fallout fame say on his YouTube channel recently that working with modern devs is actually really challenging. It's not quite as good as the good old days of the 90s. And I will say this, you probably weren't expecting this one, because I've saved the best for last, potentially. This is a leak screenshot for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Wow, I mean, it may be. The reason I saved it for last is I've got no idea if this is real. I saw it posted on an RPG message board, and there was no evidence linking it to the game whatsoever. Someone just posted it up and said, here it is. But hey, it looks cool nonetheless. It's worth at least looking at. Although I have to wonder, because when I zoomed into this screenshot, I started to get the feeling that it might be a real-life photo that's just been edited to look more like something that's in a video game, because the houses, if you zoom in the distance, they almost look like modern properties. Maybe I'm just not understanding the European architecture. I don't know. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Regardless, it's a bit of fun. And what I will be doing is covering all Kingdom Come news as it comes through. So stick around if you want to see more of it in the future, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, bye.